Okay, so I was talking to a buddy, and he mentioned he was making some pies, and I told him, hey, why don't you try this one? It's real easy. He goes, it can't be that easy. So I'm going to prove to you that to make a raspberry or blackberry pie, or really any kind of fruit pie other than maybe an apple, it's not that hard. The hardest part is the crust, and we'll get to that. But uh, for these kind of pies, all you really need is however much filling you're going to need. And so I used 3 bags of frozen blackberries. Make sure you preheat your oven, 375 degrees, and you're going to leave your pie in there for about 50 minutes. Okay, you can keep checking on it and make sure it's doing all right. But after 50 minutes, the top should be good and golden brown. Maybe some darker spots in there, but you should be perfect. Okay. And 2 bags of mixed berries, and I would have put rhubarb in there if I had any, but unfortunately I do not. But all you really do is, it helps to let them thaw out a little bit. All you really do, put them in a bowl, throw a cup and a half of sugar in there, whatever you want. Once all that sugar and everything's dissolved after an hour or two, you put in some flour, about a cup, maybe a little bit more of flour. That helps bind it together, and that's all you need. Now, apples. What I like to use are Granny Smiths, and I know some people don't because these create a lot of juice. But I like to use Granny Smiths, and what I'll do is I'll peel them, and then I'll cut them using one of these, and then kind of cube them up. So I'll kind of show you how I do that here right now. Let me set you somewhere. Well, okay, so this is basically how you peel and then cut your apple. So in order to peel it, I like to start at the top and just kind of go, it doesn't matter, counterclockwise, clockwise, and just go down. Saves you a whole lot of time. And my OCD, I like to try to keep them all in one piece. Doesn't always happen, but saves you a lot of time. Take that thing off. Okay, I usually just get a bowl, put all that stuff in, and then, you know, you got a nice snack. It's delicious. So then you take your apple cutter, set that right over the core, work it in there, and then press down. It usually follows the core real well. And there you've got a bunch of apple slices. Now just take a paring knife, cut those out. And then I just like to cube them up. I usually get about 4 per slice. And that's about it. And once you have about 6 or 7 of those, depending on how big your pie pan is, you add a half a cup of white sugar, a half a cup of brown sugar, a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a dash of nutmeg, and that's it. After that sits a little while, same thing with the berries. You add a little bit of flour for binding, especially with these Granny Smiths, because they create a lot of juice. You want to bind all that up. And then once you're ready, you have your bottom crust in. Put that in, put your top crust in, and I'll show you where to go from there. Okay, so now we're going to get to the actual pie crust. So it's real simple. By the way, this is what happens when you dice those up. You put all your ingredients together. It smells like a friggin' Yankee candle. The cinnamon and the sugar, brown sugar, and the apples. So anyway, what we need is, I got everything here. You need cold water, Crisco, salt, sugar, and your flour's over here. Real easy recipe, okay? let me set this out of the way a little bit. Now, the original recipe only called for 2 cups. I upped it just because I wanted to have enough to get around the pie plate. I like to make bigger pies, so that's why I did it. Your tools, you're going to need a rolling pin and a pastry cutter and a fork. So, first things first, 3 cups of flour. And for those of you that aren't sure, when you do this, I like to take the scoop, put it in your flour, and then level it off. Don't pack it in there, all right? So we need 3 cups of flour. Now we need 1 cup of Crisco, or, you know, shortening, whatever kind of shortening you're really going to use. And I know some people use vinegar. I never got why. I'm sure there's a reason for it, but I never did it. But this will make enough for the top crust and the bottom crust, plus a little bit extra for those of you that are like me that like to eat pie crust. And yes, you can eat it because there's no eggs in it, so it's not like it's cookie dough, which I still eat anyway. But all right, so roughly a cup of Crisco. Probably should have used a spoon for this, but oh well. Okay, got that. I've got other pies to make, so I'm gonna put that on the side. You got your Crisco, your flour. Now, here, the recipe calls for a teaspoon of salt. I go a half a teaspoon of salt and a half a teaspoon of sugar. Just because, you know, make it a little bit sweeter. There's a half teaspoon of salt. Half a teaspoon of sugar. All right. Now comes your pastry cutter. So you don't worry about the water right now. First thing you want to do is just take this pastry cutter and cut and bind all that stuff together and just work it in. It's going to take you a little while, but just work it in there. Make sure you bring the sides in. Every now and then you might want to clean off the pastry cutter. I got some helpers in the background if you can hear them. Now you're going to need another bowl, because what you're going to do is this is what it's going to start to look like. once you've got it all together, is you're going to need another bowl, because you're going to take half of this, you're going to put it in that bowl, and that'll be for your top. And then the half you leave in this will be for your bottom. Okay, so that's good. That's really good, okay? So, please make sure your hands are clean, okay, when you do this. So I'm going to take this bowl, bring it over here, take roughly half. Now, the bottom usually takes a little bit more than half to cover the entire bottom, just because you have to dish it in and the top's a little more flat, okay? So leave a little bit more in for your bottom than you do for your top, okay? So there's your top. This is your bottom. Now, it's going to take about 5 tablespoons of cold water to bind this all together, okay? And if it happens to be too sticky, you can always put more flour in. That's not a problem. So I like to distribute it out. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now you take your fork. I gotta get another one. And you work that together. Until it's pretty much clumping together in one big clump. Okay? This is not the cleanest job in the world, but it does make for a good pie crust. The only kind of crust I'll use is a homemade one. So, all right, now put your flour down. So now you've got your crust, and it's pretty sticky. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some flour, sprinkle it on the edge, just so it's not too sticky. It doesn't stick to my rolling pin. Okay? So now, just work that good and together so it sticks together well. Because if not, it will split. It's not like cookie dough. This will split out. So you have to make sure it's binding together well. Okay? So there's a good, sprinkle some on. So that way, the rolling pin does not stick to it. And now you just roll it out. And you roll it out one way, and just keep working it around. My rolling pin was sticking, so I'm just going to put a little bit more on top. And roll it out till you think you've got it a good thickness and a good size. If you see it start splitting one way, maybe work it a little bit the other way. Just kind of use your judgment. Now, for the bottom, I like it about 50% bigger. Okay, so that should be good. Now, here's a little trick. Some might know, some might not. When you go to put your crust in your pie pan, okay, if you take your rolling pin, set it on the edge, take the edge of your crust, put it on your rolling pin, and then just roll it up. All you have to do is put it over your pie pan and roll it out. Okay? It's that easy. Now, if you've got a spot that maybe you're a little low in, you've got enough here. If you take a little bit of water, kind of dab it on there, and then you can add this to it. So if you had that, you could, let's say right there, dab that on there, and just patch it in, okay? All right. And that's your bottom. And this is going to be one of my berries. So I'm going to go ahead and add the flour to it. We'll put the berries in here, and then we'll roll out the top, and I'll show you what I do for that. Okay, now that's what it looks like after I put the flour in. Okay, so, and some people might say, hey, doesn't the flour affect the taste? It doesn't. So I'm washing my hands, by the way, because I did put that crust in my mouth. Sorry about that. So now we're just gonna push, or push. We're gonna put the filling in. Spread that around. And now for those of you that like pie crust, you can save this. Dip your extra pie crust in that. It's great. Oh, by the way, orange peel, or apple peels, put them in your wine. Now we're fancy. We're not that fancy. I'm drinking out of a freaking beer cup. Anyway, moving on. So now, spread that around. Get it pretty even. Okay, there's that. Now we're ready for our top crust. Okay, another trick I'll show you. If you take a little bit of water and put it around the edge, use a basting brush, and put it around the edge. When you put your other crust on, it will stick to that one nice, and you shouldn't have any problems with it coming apart in the oven. Okay, so now, all right, that's all rolled on. Press the sides together. Good. Just press the sides together real nice. And now you can do one of two things. You can either take a fork and press the sides, or what I like to do is I take these two fingers, put them right here, press down, press in with my thumb, and just go all the way around like that. Some spots you'll have more crust than others. It helps, you know, that's where getting your crust uniform will come into play. Okay, now go back to your paring knife and you just trim off the extra. Okay, so now that you've got that off, put that in another bowl. Unfortunately, you really can't reuse this stuff just because of the way it is. It doesn't go back together very well, and it doesn't roll out very well the next time. So the best thing you can do, dogs like it, I like it. I didn't touch my hands. So we're going to put it in there for later. So now what you do is you're going to take your basting brush, and I know a lot of people put egg on it. You don't have to. I like milk. Luckily, we have milk straight from the cow. We have our own cow. It's high in cream, I like that. If it's not, if it's store-bought, sometimes I add a little bit half and half. So we're just going to take that and just brush that on and get a good coat over the entire crust. And this is going to help it brown and flake up, okay? And I like to put a little extra in the edges of the crust just because. Helps those brown up a little bit better. Okay? I like to leave a little bit of milk sitting in those little dishes in the crust. So not a lot, but you know. So then all you do is take your knife, and you can either do, it doesn't matter how many slits you put in it, honestly. I like to do 4, at least on these, on my apples. I'll do 4 long ones, and then in the middle I'll do a few small ones. So this one will do that. I'll show you. I find the middle. And that way, this also helps to, when you go to cut it, to get even slices. So you can get 8 slices out of this. So now I just like to sprinkle. I go kind of heavy on the sugar. I like a nice glaze on my pie crust. Okay. And well, we'll just leave that there. And then that's it. So now that is your pie. It's ready to go in the oven. I should say you want to preheat your oven to 375 degrees, and then it's not a bad idea to put this on a baking sheet and then set it in there. So if there is any spillage that comes out, which hopefully there's not if you do this right, and the sides stay together, you shouldn't have any problems. And then that keeps any spillage from going into your oven and burning. So that's that. Any questions? Leave them in the comments. I'll try to get back to you. Thanks for watching. Hope it was informative. Have a good day. Deuces.